So Iran, we wanted to talk about Iran. We're concerned about Iran. We're all concerned that there might be a war by accident even. I mean, there's very little likelihood of a deliberate war. I mean, President Trump is not likely to be sucked into a war of purposefully because he wants a war. He doesn't want a war with Iran.
Absolutely not. No, President Trump has indicated from the beginning of his administration, before he became president, he does not want wars. He wants to extract the U.S. from positions where we have troops overseas in war-torn countries. But the difficulty in this environment we're in, there can be miscalculations by one side or the other, which can lead to war. And certainly the shooting down of this very massive drone of the U.S. by a very sophisticated Iranian anti-ballistic missile system was something which almost caused a conflict which could have spread into a general war.
And interesting too when you talk about President Trump's intentions, or when I'm talking about President Trump's intentions. I mean, I was reminded yesterday by a supporter of Donald Trump here in the United States that Trump's Art of the Deal book, written a long time ago,
many years ago,
basically lays out his strategy, which is to negotiate tough, but then at the end of the day, he does not want a deal that is not a win-win situation for both sides. That is the basis on which he predicates all his business actions. And that is very important to remember in the context of Iran, I would say.
In the context of all his negotiations, I think that's a very key point to keep in mind. He doesn't want to take a zero-sum approach to any negotiation. He takes very strong positions, which are positions which support U.S. interests and interests of our allies. But at the end of the day, he wants to have an agreement which both sides can live with and prosper from. So for this reason, I think it's a pity that there can't be a more direct face-to-face negotiation between Iran and the U.S. on these outstanding issues. I think they're all quite soluble if we got the right people in the room at the right time. The right time, I think, is now.
Absolutely. And as a little aside, I mean, I know we're talking about Iran, but it's a tragedy in a way. I know 3/4 of the Palestinian people oppose Trump's deal of the century.
Yeah.
But it's a tragedy that the Palestinian leadership didn't seize the opportunity to go into a negotiation, because they could have negotiated hard, just the way Donald Trump negotiates hard, and he would not. He wasn't expecting to walk away with the Palestinians in misery. He wanted. I mean, it was an opportunity for the Palestinians to make some success out of things. And this, indeed, I think, is an opportunity for the Iranians who've been suffering for sanctions for years, and the nuclear deal hadn't got rid of those. I mean, it was an opportunity. It is an opportunity for Iranians to seize the initiative and to actually get something major out of this.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. On the Palestinian issue, I think it's always better to talk rather than to stay aside and say nothing or criticize those who are talking. There's an opportunity in Manama, which I think was missed. You can go in with your eyes open as to what you're dealing with, but you should always take opportunities when they're offered and not to let others pressure you not to participate in these discussions. And I think that's a real pity for our Palestinian friends that they did not take that opportunity. On Iran, I believe the same thing. It takes two to tango. It takes two to negotiate. I think we're not quite there yet, but I hope there's processes on the sidelines which is trying to find a way in which these discussions can go forward, if indeed they can.
And you feel, I mean, the U.S. administration, were their receptive partner on the Iranian side, the U.S. administration would be ready to, I mean, I know they say they are, but I mean, they would genuinely be ready to enter into talks.
Well, I think it depends on who you talk to in the U.S. administration. As we know, there as the Iranian government has its hawks, its very anti-U.S. factions, those who are perhaps less anti-U.S., may want to negotiate outcomes. Same in the United States. We have officials who do not want to see Iran as being a government which has to be replaced. President is not for regime change himself. Others in the administration may be, and certainly you can't expect them to have a negotiation. But the same thing in Iran. You have those who will not talk to, quote unquote, the great Satan. And so we have to find ways to which those parties who are willing to talk have an opportunity to do so, but at an appropriately senior level where we can have the ice broken.
Absolutely. And the key is there what is President Trump's position. I mean, in the end of the day,
the president, it's his position that counts. It's only position which counts. And anyone who thinks otherwise doesn't understand the nature of this presidency.
I mean, there are articles around that suggesting that the more hawkish, or the most hawkish element in the U.S. administration, you could argue, is John Bolton. That he's, well, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm just saying that there are a lot of comment that he may I'm saying that he may be on his way out because the president wants to steer his own ship and not be dictated to by his underlings.
Yes, I've seen those reports.
Yeah. I mean, so we have a possibility of a way forward. We have the risk of war as by accident, and we have seen that so often in history. The classic examples like the First World War, some nutcase assassinated.
Friendship was not a nutcase; he was supporting Serbian nationalism.
Well,
I mean,
all right.
But it drew that was an avoidable situation.
Yeah.
But millions paid the price.
Yes, and
you had the Manchurian incident in 1937, I believe it was, which brought Japan into conflict with China. They did it deliberately. There's Pearl Harbor, done rather deliberately. We had the Bay of Tonkin resolution.
For Vietnam.
Yeah,
yes,
and that, of course, is very much resonates with the U.S. We don't want to see a situation where we have an incident created where we have to go off to war. We have very strict guidance as to what who declares war in the U.S., but that's become muddied over the years. The last country we formally declared war on was Romania in 1945, I think. It has been under a UN resolution or a congressional resolution authorizing a conflict. So in any event, that's another question. But the important point is that we have a president who does not want war, who likes to negotiate. His style may be abrasive to many, but in the end, he wants to have a deal in which everybody profits from that deal.
Now there is, just to touch on, because I don't want to labor the point, but the Iran is perceived as a threat regionally, largely because of its. Many perceive it as a threat because of its hegemonic ambitions to have a corridor to the Med, for example, through Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. But there are also, really, in the president's heart and mind, it is the nuclear issue that seriously bothers him more than anything. The possibility of Iran having a nuclear weapon.
Yeah, that is something which is a stated red line by the U.S. We see red lines turn from pink lines to no lines, but we will not permit Iran to have a nuclear device. I don't know where you define that, but that is indeed a red line. But let's not forget that Iran also in the U.S., it supports Hezbollah. Down in Latin America, up through Venezuela, through Mexico, there are cells. Iran has created all sorts of cells within the United States. They're being very closely monitored by our internal.
Iran has created
cells. Many cells, yes, they have. And this is something which is of great concern to the FBI and to others. So these are areas we're talking about. Iran, its influence there was an assassination effort which they mounted against the former Saudi ambassador in Washington, which was nipped in the bud. Really? Those defendants were arrested. So Iran, it's not just what's doing in the region. And Iran also claims that the West will feel our power if ever war is struck. They mean by opening up all these cells they've created elsewhere in Europe and in the United States.
So there's a real perception of a threat.
But it is the nuclear
It is
aspect.
the nuclear
That's
issue
the
that
key
is
thing.
the
Exactly.
key.
So Iran's latest step into enriching this uranium, first it increased its stockpile. This last week they enriched they passed the level for enriching uranium. That is significant because it's inching forward to areas which give a lot of concern to other countries.
And it's very significant. It also means that if this is the prime concern, then a deal is quite possible, is it not? I mean, it's. But you would prefer, would we prefer a deal that dealt with all of these outstanding issues, not just the nuclear issue?
Well, I think one of the concerns over the JCPOA was that we were not dealing with some of these other issues. All we were focused on was the missile technology and the nuclear stuff, and these other issues were downplayed. That's when Saudi Arabia was not happy because they said what you're doing, releasing all these extra funds for other mischievous in the area. So all this has to be taken into account, as does the Iran's own concerns, which are also very legitimate.
But the nuclear issue
remains key at its core.
And the idea, the concept of peace between Iran and Saudi Arabia, is that a pipe dream? I mean, I know we could have some resolution between the United States of America and Iran. I can see that as a possibility. Much harder to see regional rapprochement between these two great power blocks that with their regional ambitions, the Saudis.
Well, I mean, historically, over the past 1,500 years, there have been the reign of the Persians versus the Arabs has been a long-standing historical struggle. When Saddam went into Iran unprovoked, one might add, in 1980, it was Qadsi to Saddam, very much from the Qadsi, the holy war of the ancients that went into to knock back the Persian empires. So I think it's something which there's a historic basis for this tension. We're in a new world now, new generations. It's a much smaller world. We interact instantly on the internet, etc. The late King Abdullah, may God rest his soul, wanted to bring together the Shiite and Sunni divide and create a mechanism where they could discuss.
He did he?
He did, yes, efforts, and that has rather stillborn now, but I think there are indeed ways in which this can be resolved, and this has to be an intra-Islamic discussion, not for the U.S. to be involved certainly, but I think there's certainly hope that can be resolved in the future as well.
Well, let's hope for it. Let's work for it. Thank you, Ambassador Hambley. That's powerfully said.
Well, thank you, William.
Bless your heart. Okay, we'll leave you here from Springfield, Massachusetts, on this beautiful and very sunny day. Thank you.
Noisy day, too.
Well, yes, there's that.